Hey everybody, it's Pax. The original Ashcan Pete is a character that I absolutely love. My introduction to the Arkham Files was long afternoons in my late teens playing Arkham Horror 2nd Edition with my aunt, uncle, cousins, and my brothers. They introduced me to so many board games like the classic Merchant of Venus, Carcassonne, Puerto Rico, Race for the Galaxy, and tons of other games. But my experience playing Arkham Horror 2nd Edition with them and using Ashcan Pete was one of the reasons I even bothered to check out the card game. Also that I'd been playing Netrunner for years, and Arkham had a similar action system that I'd fallen in love with, but that's kind of beside the point of today's video. The point is that I love Ashcan Pete. Dogs are awesome, the vagrant with a heart of gold, haunted by strange dreams, is a really compelling character backstory to get into the mythos thematically, and frankly, he's very well suited to solo play, which is where I spend a lot of my playtime. That being said, it's been a long time since his release, and while the 5 off-class cards he gets available does result in a very wide pool he can draw on, it does end up being fairly limited deck building experience for the remaining 25 cards in your deck. I've played more of Ashcan Pete than probably any other character in the game, and so anything to seriously shake up how I view him is very warmly received. And so fortunately, the parallel version of Ashcan Pete has just been revealed, or leaked, or spoiled, or data mined, or something, whatever happens to be true at the moment I release this video, I suppose. So let's look through the new cards and talk about them. Parallel Ashcan Pete is a 4 willpower, 2 intellect, 3 combat, and 3 agility survivor, which is one more combat skill than the original version. He's drifter traded, and he begins the game with Pete's guitar in play, rather than Duke. More on the guitar soon. And he has the following reaction. When a card you own that is attached to a scenario card would be discarded, add it to your hand instead. Limit once per round. His Elder Sign effect is +1, choose a card you own attached to a scenario card. You may return the chosen card to your hand. He has 7 health and 7 sanity, again a noted improvement due to starting with Duke in play. So straight away, his skill points and toughness mirror a more ordinary investigator, with 12 skill points and 14 points across health and sanity. After that, he has recursion on cards that attach to scenario cards. This is basically any card that attaches to locations, and comes with an associated discarding clause, and also any card that attaches to enemies when they are defeated. Remembering that the rules on cards leaving play clarifies that attachments are discarded simultaneously with the card leaving play, so you'll definitely get a card back from enemies. The Elder Sign is interesting in that I think it may allow you to get an attachment card back to your hand that simply missed its mark, but also might allow you to bounce things that don't ordinarily discard from locations. But let's take a look at the deck building to get a better understanding of precisely what cards he gets available to use his ability with. He has a deck size of 30, and his deck building options are Survivor cards level 0 to 3, Improvised and Tactic cards level 0 to 4, Neutral cards level 0 to 5, and up to 5 other Guardian cards level 0. So this consists of a reduced Survivor card pool, removing a few big bomb Survivor cards like Quick Learner, Sledgehammer, Chainsaw, and also prevents your Pocket Multi-Tool or Grizzled beyond 6 check marks. Makeshift Trap is allowed up to 8 check boxes, but other than that, there's no level 0 to 4 improvised cards that do not fall under his Survivor deck building. The main improvement that the Parallel Ashcan Pete gets is going to be the level 0 to 4 Tactic cards and 5 level 0 Guardian cards. The Tactic Access provides a whopping 70 cards to choose from, 42 of which are level 0 cards, and not to mention 25 of the 70 non-Survivor Tactics are level 0 Guardian cards, meaning you'll be able to include a lot more than 5 level 0 Guardian cards in a level 0 deck. We will talk about some specific cards available shortly, but let's take a look at the rest of his kit. The rest of him remains unchanged because instead of getting advanced signature cards, this Parallel Pete has received replacement signature cards. So next is Pete's Guitar, still holding up. It's a 2-cost asset that, like Duke, starts in play when you use the Parallel Front of Pete, and it is item and instrument traded. It has a free triggered ability that exhausts Pete's Guitar to choose a non-elite enemy at your location or a connecting location. Move that enemy once in a direction of your choice. Then, if there are no enemies at your location, either heal 1 horror or gain 1 resource. So obviously an asset that starts in play that allows you to shove enemies around is a very strong effect. You can use this to move an enemy at your location to an adjacent location without even taking a test. And then if that was the only enemy, you get to heal a horror and take a resource. So yeah, that's a strong effect, allowing you to make non-hunter enemies nearly a non-threat, but importantly, allowing you to shove them into the types of trap cards that Pete's deck building grants him access to, as well as the attachment recursion that he naturally gets extra value from. So does he get a tough weakness to compensate for such a strong signature card?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Hard Times, his replacement weakness, is Hardship traded. That's a brand new one. And it has Revelation, put Hard Times into play in your threat area. Forced, after you draw one or more cards, choose and discard that many cards from hand. You can do a double action activate to discard Hard Times. So no, he doesn't really have that tough of a signature weakness, just another variation of the double action to clear style that mostly seems to follow the same pattern of other double action weaknesses. If you draw it late into the scenario, maybe you get away with not clearing it, but otherwise, you take your first opportunity available to just treat it as 2 actions lost and move on. I mean, it doesn't even trigger off of his reaction ability as it's currently worded, though I expect it may be intended to. To me, this seems like a bit of a nothing burger. So now that we've taken a look at all of his cards, let's talk about the kit holistically and walk through some card choices available to him. Both cards that are good with the tools at his disposal on his Investigator card and Guitar, but also just generally high-value cards in the 0-4 Tactic and level 0 Guardian world. I've already mentioned the synergy between his Guitar and his reaction ability, so let's start with cards supporting that theme. The Guitar allows you to move enemies very freely. You can move an enemy from your location to any connecting location, or from a connected location to any location connected to that location. And this opens up like an incredible amount of enemy management options. As a really basic example, say you've got a fire axe or any melee weapon that you can get a decent chance to land hits with, and as you land a hit, you attach a Grievous Wounds to the enemy. You can then push that enemy away with the Guitar so they'll die at the end of the round without needing to suffer an attack in the enemy phase. Just remember that if they're a hunter, you're going to want to walk away as they bleed out, or they'll just catch up immediately. You could push an enemy away to a location that you've set up a makeshift trap, either with the explosives device, or a poisonous upgrade to kill them, or just locking them down for several turns with the net and timer upgrade. You could pull an enemy off of another Investigator as an engagement proxy, foregoing the resources or healing as an emergency enemy management tactic. Then, as enemies are dying or as attachments at locations expire, one attachment can return to your hand, remember, only once per round. Some of the classic Survivor location attachments like Hiding Spot, Lure level 1 and 2, and Snare Trap level 2 are all ways to be able to supplement the Guitar's enemy management capabilities. These are all cards that have typically been viewed as being somewhere from pretty niche and difficult to use to just plain bad. Personally, I've played a Forgotten Age campaign in the past with some folks online, and I've seen some really strong applications of all of these to manage hunter enemies with vengeance, and especially the big death ball of snakes in Depths of Yoth. But if you've never seen these cards played to much effect before, that's, I would say, a pretty normal experience. I think that recurring these effects is going to be a really big boost to your ability to leverage them into clever plays, as well as just getting the icons back from them on a card like Hiding Spot that has double icons. Outside of Survivor cards, in his level 0-4 Tactic and Guardian pool, he gets a few cards that benefit pushing enemies around, prohibiting enemy movement or attaching to enemies. Under Surveillance is a great option to shove an enemy into, automatically evading it for 2 turns and discovering a clue. As for cards that seem pretty nutty to use with his reaction, he gets access to On the Hunt level 3, and I already love that card, but the play pattern here on Pete sounds like it's going to be nuts. You fetch an enemy during the Mythos phase, you kill the enemy during your turn, you get paid $3 for the privilege, and then you return On the Hunt to your hand. Like, Jesus Christ. Obviously, there's an upper limit per shuffle of the encounter deck to the number of times you can pull an enemy out, and due to the missing level 4 and 5 Survivor cards, he isn't getting a sledgehammer or a chainsaw to tear through the enemies. But obviously, he's still got tools in the remainder of his card pool to be able to do this. You could set up an ambush before using On the Hunt, or you can supplement your damage output with things like Dodge level 2 or Counterpunch level 2. You could just use some decent weapons like the old hunting rifle or the Derringer. You could even take your Guitar, shove the enemy away, and toss a stick of dynamite at them. On the Hunt's reaction to gain 3 resources can be triggered even when you aren't at the enemy's location, so it's going to be a pretty cool way to soften the Mythos when you're prepared for enemies. For some more niche applications of synergy with his Investigator card, you could use a card like Breach the Door or Shortcut level 2 that attach to locations but don't ordinarily have any way to detach them. Then, once they're used up, or no longer applicable, any Elder Signs pulled after that point in the scenario can just return those cards to hand to redeploy as needed or commit for tests. I think that's really cool, especially for a card as strong as Breach the Door, but you just have to make sure you have a way to land a really big combat test to leverage that. Now for the straight up good cards in his deck building that don't really matter too much with the rest of them, within Tactics he's going to have access to a surprising amount of enemy management options. Toe to Toe, which feels a lot better with 7 health and sanity, as well as the Guitar being able to heal you. Sweeping Kick, Sneak Attack levels 0 and 2, and Counterpunch are all cute ways to sneak in a little bit of extra damage outside of Ashcan Pete's ordinary deck building. Further to that, Kicking the Hornet's Nest is another early way to fetch enemies and make money and gather clues, especially if you're planning on including any of these previously mentioned damage cards. Practice Makes Perfect and Shortcut level 0 are both pure value seeker cards that everyone knows are pretty damn strong. Ever Vigilant level 1 and level 4 are going to be available either to help you set up or to help the whole team set up. After all, you're already starting with his guitar in play, so why not help everyone else at the table? Like all parallel investigators, Ashcan Pete is going to be able to mix and match the front and back between normal and parallel. And since he has replacement cards instead of advanced, you can also choose which of his signature cards you want, original, parallel, or even both. If you choose the original front, you probably want to have his original signature cards, since you wouldn't start with the guitar in play. You'd start with Duke in play, and vice versa for the parallel front. As for what this would give you, well, I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that too much, and I'll leave that for the people in the comments section. Overall, I think the parallel Ashcan Pete is going to be a relatively strong investigator, just like his original, and it's going to open up a decent amount of card pool that tons of players haven't yet had a great experience with. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.